I believe we are live. Just gonna check in, make sure that the stream is working. Give a second for this to all link up. Looks like everything is working just fine. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Video Shaman YouTube channel. I am your host, Alex Lipton, and I would like to encourage you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell. I'm kind of getting used to saying all those things, but it's necessary for the algorithm, and we're going to get better at it, make it more natural as we go along. I would love to start this live stream off in the same way I start every live stream off, with a prayer for gratitude. Gratitude, especially for all of the things that we take for granted: the air that we breathe, the water we drink, the food that we eat, the land that we're standing on. Grateful for all of our friends and family, people we know, and gratitude for all the people we have yet to meet in our lives, and all the strangers out there that hopefully one day when we meet them, we may show kindness, compassion, and remember the divinity within, because we're all part of one big human family. It's important to take a step further in our lives so that we may be more giving, because that's really what creation is all about. It's, we understand in terms of polarity, we talk about creation, or the creator, and the creature. You know, everything can be broken down to polarity, and if we want to aspire to be more similar in form to the creator, we must learn how to give back more. So if you can give a little bit more, even if it's outside the holiday season, it's a really wonderful thing. I'm super grateful to be here where I'm at right now. I'm in San Diego, staying at a hotel for the Conference on Consciousness and Human Evolution, TCCHE. It's a beautiful event. This is day 2 of the conference. There's been a lot of great speakers here so far, and I'm just super grateful, and it's such a privilege and an honor to be here. My uncle Bruce is also, he's doing a big presentation, did one today, and then also on Monday he's got a big seminar. Today also got to see Greg Braden do a presentation, which was incredible. Getting much more familiarized with Greg Braden's work. He is such a true humanitarian. All the people here that are presenting are wonderful examples of being a great humanitarian, somebody that's just giving back and sharing their wisdom to help remind us of our divinity and how we can be more kind to each other with an informed wisdom. It's a wonderful blessing and an honor to be here. Sometimes I get imposter syndrome just being here, surrounded by all these wonderful people, because you know, it's like, man, like what everyone should be here. I just wish everyone could be here and participate in this, and that's part of my mission, is to help spread this message far and wide, and facilitate more people coming into this worldview, because so much of the world is burdened by fear, and we're so vulnerable and victimized for generations, and we don't really have not everybody's fortunate to come to an event like this, and I really working very hard to bring this message to more and more people. I can't express enough how grateful I am to be here. And I got a really cool, there were a lot of really cool experiences today. I met JJ Hertak, who wrote this book here. It's called The Keys of Enoch. This is a really like a big deal book. You can get it online. It's actually super expensive online, but I was able to get a copy of it. I think it's just because it's in such limited, like print, like limited edition here. The author was here, and I got it for a really, really good, a good deal. I've had people tell me about this book and how important it is in terms of consciousness and prophecies and predictions and stuff. It's kind of like a compendium of science and spirit and knowledge all coming together. But the first book that I got, and I'm really excited, just want to mention this, is another one from JJ Hertak and also James Ernest Brown, called Giza's Industrial Complex. This is I was drawn to this immediately. Just a quick little preview of what it is. It's this idea that the pyramids in Egypt at the Giza Plateau were part of an ancient power plant system where they were also generating chemistry. This is even Egypt originally, because that's the name that a lot of people that were foreigners called Egypt in other languages, just like the game of telephone. It's Egypt. It's not what they called it back then. They didn't consider themselves the Egyptians, but the most common name, if you look up Egypt, it was called Chem or Chem. I don't know how you pronounce it properly, but Khem. And this is where even the word chemistry comes from. So this book goes into so much an incredible story, a new depiction of Egypt, that it was actually the center of chemistry, of science, and it had it was an electrified city. There was actually free energy technology. I'm sure we're going to get much deeper into that whole subject. It's fascinating just to think about how much we misperceive about our history, especially into relation where we're at today. But that's not exactly what I wanted to get into in this live stream. I was thinking about it since the last one I did, what would be the next subject to get into. And this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be on the flat earth. I think this is one of the reasons I was going to be a little sad that TikTok was getting banned or is getting banned, because it's a great source of entertainment for me to see people in the flat earth community just making these creepy videos about how NASA's lying to us about the earth, and you have the round earthers and the flat earthers. And well, yeah, sure, NASA does lie, the government does lie, but to take it to that step, the question is, first, I want to get it out on the table right away. I don't consider myself a flat earther. I don't even consider myself a round earther. I consider myself we're going to come up with a good term for it. And this is what the nature of this video is going to be on today, is my take on the flat earth. It's more of on the earth itself. The earth is a hologram. It's an energy ball or an energy source. There's a field of energy. So I was trying to get the StreamYard thing set up for this. I wanted to show a picture that would demonstrate the mindset I want us all to think about when I get down this rabbit hole with you today. But I don't have the full service yet, so hopefully soon we'll get that. I was going to put a picture up on the screen here. It's an optical illusion, and I'm sure a lot of you may have seen it. Maybe you haven't. I'll describe it as best as I can to you. But it's going to Google, you can type it in. It's the old woman and young woman optical illusion. What's so interesting about this illusion? The point is that when you look at it at first glance, you may see a young woman turned around looking over her shoulder. But another person may look at this image and see an old woman that's just kind of like looking directly at you. And that's part of the illusion, is that, you see one or you see the other. And for a long time, you may have a hard time going from one image to the other. You may not even see it. But that's part of the optical illusion, is you have to spend some time and just kind of let your eyes rest and see. The relevance of this optical illusion, just like a lot of these dual image illusions, is that you are physically incapable of seeing both of the images at the exact same time. Yes, you can intellectually, once you see both of them, once you switch and see the old woman and the young woman, intellectually, there's two versions there. There's an old woman, there's a young woman. So you might trick yourself into thinking, oh, I see both of them. But that's just because in your mind, it's there. But the reality is with your two eyes and your focus and your attention, you can only be looking at one or the other at any given time. So the takeaway from this is that depending on where you're putting your attention, when you're looking at something, you're implicitly, directly not looking at the other thing. This is a key principle in mentalism and sleight of hand. While the magician is doing something and having you pay attention over here, they are under your awareness, stealing your wallet without you seeing it. So wherever you're putting your focus and attention is where you're seeing it, and you're not paying attention to everything else. So the reason I wanted to bring this up today, I'll bring this actual image up next time when I get the StreamYard thing correct. But when you're looking at one thing, you cannot see the other thing. So if there's two things in your field of view, you can only see one of them at any given time. And I bring that up because we can look at the concept of the flat earth and the round earth as another version of this two images or two ideas that are before us here. If you're looking for round earth, you're going to see a round earth. If you're looking for a flat earth, as you may find out in these flat earth online communities, you're going to see some flat earth stuff. I mean, more directly too. A lot of the flat earth people, I mean, if you're standing on the surface of the earth and you look out with the naked eye, you can't really see the curvature of the earth. You know it's there based on what we've been told and what the science is, but to the observation of your eyes, it looks flat. But then again, if you go up into space or you go up to the atmosphere, for all you flat earthers that may not believe in space, we'll get into that too. But when you get a different vantage point, you may see a different version of the earth. And just to give you my thesis idea here is that it's not a question of whether it's flat or if it's round. My thesis is that it is round and it is flat, or more clearly, it is a plane, a flat plane. It is both at the same time, depending on how you look at it. Sounds crazy, and it's very paradoxical, but as all of these live streams are going to open up into us here, there is absolutely a polarity with everything, and depending on how you look at it, you'll see one or the other. I'm going to give us a little example of this in a scientific point of view using quantum physics, because this, I think, really demonstrates this on a much less of a philosophical point of view and much more based on a scientific experiment point of view. If anyone has heard of the double slit experiment in quantum physics, you might get a sense of what I'm talking about here. The whole idea, which let's just say here, by the way, a lot of quantum physics stuff. I mean, there's so much science, and not everybody can understand quantum physics. I haven't read any real like deep quantum physics books or not a physicist, so I don't claim to I don't want to bastardize the science of quantum physics and just make it a new agey thing. But the double slit experiment is really interesting because the whole idea is they were using like a type of gun like that would shoot particles out against a wall, and there on this wall there was two slits, and on the other side there's a flat wall. So what they do is they shoot these particles and like spray them like this across horizontally across through the slit. So the particles would bounce off of the wall, but once it went through the slit, it would go through, and then you could see on the other side there were a pattern formed where the particles went through and hit the wall on the other side, which makes sense. You know, it's like it's two windows. It went through these little slits. But the experiment got weird when they, instead of observing it, like literally they had cameras and they were watching this experiment as they did it, when they looked away and did the exact same motion of shooting this shooting the particles at the wall. When they weren't looking at it, the particles actually appeared to go through the wall and created a completely different pattern on the reverse on the back side of the wall. It created much more of what you would consider to be like if it was a wave that went through the wall and created a much more complicated pattern on the back. So forgive me for not being the best at explaining the double slit experiment. You can go watch videos of this like till the cows come home. But the point is, from the takeaway of this experiment, was that particles behave differently depending on whether or not you're observing it. So if you're observing the particle, it acts like a particle. But if you're not observing it, it behaves more like a wave. So this is my foundation for the way I think about the flat earth, because if you want to like expand up a particle is like a little ball, considered like a little globe, a tiny little bead. And depending on if you're looking at it or not, it is round or it turns into a wave, which is like on a flat plane. So this idea got me to rethink the whole flat earth thing, because when you look at it and you see the discourse online, or it's literally one side believes they're right, one side believes they're right, and they're listening to the flat earthers watch like talk about how all the round earth propaganda that's out there really just, it amuses me, because it's like, okay, well, we thought we were deceived into thinking it was round, when in reality, if you look at it this way, you look at it from an energetic point of view, those people are wrong, and they're the sheep, and they're the dumb ones. And then the round earth people, it's the same thing. I mean, even though these two camps are completely different in their ideology, the outcome is the same, where they look at the other group as if they're idiots. And this is why I mean, part of my mission in life is to try to find common ground with things and see how we can maybe recognize that no one has the full picture, because we're looking at, like, the optical illusion I was telling you. Like, if we're only looking at one thing, we're not seeing something else by definition. So how do we expand our consciousness to recognize intellectually that both of these images are there? Both of these concepts have truth to them. We may not be able to see one versus the other, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe it's to recognize if there's this bigger picture. So a lot of the flat earthers believe that the earth, and it's funny too, just like any religion, they're not all in agreement about everything. You find a lot of flat earthers are very religious. They're coming at this from a biblical point of view. They cite like Genesis and God creating the universe and how there's the firmament and the water separating. And so a lot of the flat earthers in general, these religious ones, are denying science anyway. They don't believe in evolution. They see evolution as the work of the devil or something. So whatever science and the government is telling you must be a complete lie, because, of course, in the Bible, they said that, the firmament, it's very strongly implied the earth is flat. But then there's also flat earthers who are not really religious particularly. They are more conspiracy people, and rightfully so, don't trust the government. They don't trust NASA. I mean, there's a lot to question about what they say. I love that statement, or that reframing of the acronym of NASA instead of National Aeronautics and Space Administration. It's never a straight answer. And I can agree with that too. I'm very skeptical about whether or not we're getting all of the information from the government about the truth about reality. There's absolutely every reason to believe that they're not telling us everything for reason not necessarily relevant or important right now. But to get back on track here, there are some flat earthers who are not necessarily religious, but they are coming at it from a strictly, like, we're in a materialistic world and we're literally on a flat disc or a flat plane. And that for anyone that's not aware of the thinking of this, like, generally speaking, the center of the disc or the center of the plane is the North Pole. And that when you go out, you have this thing called the ice wall, which is what we would perceive as Antarctica as a continent. The round earthers think Antarctica is a continent, and the flat earthers think Antarctica is an ice wall that surrounds this disc. And there's all sorts of even other wild differing opinions about the flat earth, like what's on the other side of the ice wall. Some people think we're literally underneath a big glass dome, and that the government, when they found out about the military and the secret government programs, and they found out the true nature of the flat earth, ever since then, when, like, they send rockets up into space, they're not going to outer space, they're trying to go to the moon, they're trying to break the glass dome, very much like the movie The Truman Show, where like they think we're literally living under a dome. And that beyond the ice wall, that's all debatable too. There are some groups of people that think that this is a crazy one. I'd love to share this. One of the flat earth conspiracies is that we're not actually on a disc. Like, I love listening to flat earthers being like, no, man, those flat earthers are crazy. Like, what really is going on is outside the ice wall. It's not the edge of the earth. We're just inside of a big crater on a much bigger plane. And that once you go through these corridors at the ice wall, there are other little, like, craters with other civilizations. So all the stories of the aliens or Atlantis or all of the Pleiadians or whatever, the hollow earth, all that's like, they all have their own little micro community outside the ice wall. And they seem to be at odds a lot of time with the religious people. Like, oh no, the religious flat earthers are crazy. No, we got the true flat earth story. Like, this is what cracks me up. I get so amazed with this, because it's like, really, we're splitting hairs on this subject here. and everyone just conveniently is in disagreement with each other about the nature of where we are, and it just perpetuates lack of trust and othering, where we point fingers at the others. You know, the round earthers pointing at the flat earthers, the flat earthers pointing at the round earthers, and then even flat earthers pointing at each other. No one has the fucking truth, and it's like ridiculous. But back to what I was saying about quantum physics and energy. Another key takeaway from this, you know, as much as quantum physics is a complicated science, there's a huge paradigm shift that's implicit and very strongly a part of the whole shift into the world of quantum physics from Newtonian physics, which is this idea that everything is energy. Matter is not physical in the sense that we thought it was. Like the particle is actually energy, and that our consciousness interacts with this energy, and depending on how we're interacting with it, it can behave one way or another. I'm sure you may have heard of this idea too, that matter is not physical as much as it's just energy that's on a slower or a lower vibration. So the key takeaway here is that everything is energy. This is what is lacking to me in the idea of the flat earth, or a lot of the flat earth people and a lot of the round earth people too. They're coming at this whole thing, whether it's flat or whether it's round, from the old defunct paradigm of materialism. The idea that everything is physical. Like even the round earth idea, if you go open a regular geology textbook, they have a cross section of the earth. We're like, well, if you were to cut the earth open, what is on the inside? Well, you see, you got the crust, everything is physical. Then under the crust, you've got the mantle, which is all lava. And the further deeper you go into the center of the earth, the more hard and dense the matter gets, where then the core is just like this super condensed rock of like magnetic energy. I'm not so convinced that that may be the case. I mean, that's a really powerful theory that we can get through a lot of data, but no one is technically drilled down that far. No one's drilled to the center of the earth, as far as I know. I mean, that's the lore of science fiction movies. But it's coming from this idea. It's like people kind of have a hypothesis or a theory or an understanding about the world, and then they, you know, the hypothesis, and then they go and they do science to try to prove that hypothesis. You know, it's part of the implied hypothesis here for both of these things, that the world is physical. Same thing with the flat earth people. It's like there's literally a glass dome like surrounding the earth, protecting us from something physical outside. But I think this is where we're wrong, is we're not recognizing that everything is energy. So I want to stick to the flat earth concept, and this is try to give you my perspective of like the flat earth, because I'm not going to try to convince you the earth is round. I mean, I think the earth is round. I think the earth is round, maybe not perfectly spherical, but there is a three-dimensional shape to the earth where if you walk all the way around it, you will have different viewpoints of the stars and everything. I'm not going to try to sit here and convince you on the round earth. We all can agree on that, hopefully. What's compelling is to change our perspective, or give my perspective of what the flat earth could be, because I want to try to prove to you that the earth is flat as well as it is round, but not flat in the traditional sense that we thought, or that most people are thinking. I'm not coming at this from a religious point of view either. I don't believe that the Bible is, you know, the direct written words of God or anything like that. We'll get more into the religion stuff later. But the best way I could describe how I think that the earth is flat is through the idea of virtual reality and something called an omnidirectional treadmill. So another tie into quantum physics and the idea that we're living in a simulation. These are all popular ideas in the culture right now, that we're living in some sort of hologram of consciousness, right? And it's like everything is energy. So there's a thing when if you've ever tried virtual reality. I think I've done this a long time ago, but not recently with the newer advanced VR headsets. But you can put on a VR headset and have an experience where you may be sitting in a very small room in a chair, like not moving. But when you put on the VR headset using the controllers, you can actually have the simulated effect of moving around in space. Let's imagine a virtual reality game where you're on the earth, the round earth. And then what we do is we get you on what's called an omnidirectional treadmill. The omnidirectional treadmill is now, when you have the VR headset on, you're standing still, and in your virtual reality, you start walking, you literally start moving your feet. You get the feeling like you're moving, and in the virtual reality, you're walking down a road, making turns, going up hills, going down hills. But in reality, you're standing perfectly in the same spot, and the treadmill gives you the simulation of you're moving. So you're not actually moving anywhere. You're stationary, but in your virtual reality, you're moving all over the place. You're walking around the earth. But what happens when you take the headset off? You realize that you're completely stationary. I think that the concept of the flat earth is real in the sense that we are the earth, and our relationship to it, our personal experience of being here in a lot of ways is like being on that omnidirectional treadmill in a virtual reality. Our biology is like a super advanced quantum computer that allows our consciousness to come in and experience the world in a way that we couldn't if we weren't in our bodies. And when we have the experience of walking around in space, that's part of the simulation, man. That's just the simulation. We're not actually moving around or anything. We have the perception that we are, but we are in what we can, in quantum physics, they call a fixed superposition. So the idea is that if you look at it like this as well, in the polarity, there is a thing called space time. There's space and there's time. You can walk around in three-dimensional space, but we can't perceive time. We have this sensation of we're in the present moment. I talked about this in Time Travel Livestream a couple episodes ago. But we have this perception that we're in the present moment, we're moving away from the past, and we're moving into the future. You can't see the future, you can't change the past. We're kind of like, we can feel that we're moving through what we describe as time, but we can't see time. The only way we could see time is with like a watch and to measure it like on a little dial moving around. But that's not the same. Like, we don't feel like we're actually moving. We can't change the direction of time we're moving in like we can change the direction of space we're moving in. So that's our day-to-day lives. We live in space-time. But there's an interesting phenomenon that happens when we go to sleep, or for people who are super advanced in things like astral projection or remote viewing, even transcendental meditation, where, think again, put your thinking hat on here. I'm not tying in a bunch of subjects together, but hopefully it can make sense about the nature of our reality. Is that when you sit down to, or let's say you sit down to astral project. You sit down in a chair, you don't move, you close your eyes, you get into a protocol where you can calm the mind and extend your consciousness out. If you ever seen the movie Doctor Strange, it's a fictional movie, obviously, but there are a lot of people in military programs that actually, this is the disclosed thing. It's a real thing, astral projection. Go look it up. Don't take my word for it. But you can sit in a singular place and not move, sit in space, one position in space like we do in time. And then in that same moment, extend your consciousness and travel all over the timescape. We call this time space. So there's space time where you move around in space and you're fixed in time. But then through a meditative protocol like astral projection, for example, you can flip it on its head and be stationary in space, but be moving around in three-dimensional time. So again, depending on how you look at it, it could be one way or it could be the other way. You could be sitting in one place, just like virtual reality on the omnidirectional treadmill, and have the experience of moving all over the place. So I think that the flat earth concept is much more like that. I think that if you go into time space, if you look at the earth, not from a physical point of view, but you look at the earth from an energetic point of view, as an energy being, as an energy matrix. When you get into that point of view, then the earth is a big flat plane. And one of the things that made me really start to like consider this as an idea, really think about this, been thinking about this for a long time, is that the flat earth community uses ancient depictions from shamanic cultures, indigenous cultures from around the world, separated by oceans and time. You know, you've got the story of the world tree, Yggdrasil, in the Norse mythology, and the idea of the 9 realms, and that there's this big tree at the center of the universe or the center of the world, and there are these different planes of existence along the tree. And then some shamanic cultures describe that world tree as the spinal cord of the human being, and that all of these different realms are like the chakras. So like you've got the lower chakras, and then you go up to the higher chakras, and these are all representative of different planes of reality. Even a lot of these scientists today are talking about the multiverse and how there's how many different dimensions are there and everything. That's pretty common and understood thing. Not maybe not understood, but at least pondered upon. And in pop culture, people know about it. So the idea of the tree at the center of the world, and the whole world rotates around this tree, and then when you go to the center, there's this big tree. I do believe, or at least I'm pondering upon the idea, that when you go into time space, this realm of the astral plane, the dreams, the dreamscape, the timescape, the shamanic realm, when you go full shaman mode, a lot of shamans during their initiations describe this experience of going into another plane and then being drawn. There's a big tree, and they have to go to this big tree. And there's so many ancient depictions of this that had nothing to do with the church or the Judeo-Christian monotheistic beliefs. So it's just interesting how we can dismiss a lot of that stuff about the religion stuff, but the shamanic stuff, I'm less inclined to just throw out they were crazy. I think they're describing something, because the people of the ancient world, they didn't live in the material world like we do today. They saw energy. The world of the animus, where everything was physical and energy at the same time. So they treated the world like an energy matrix. And when they looked at it that way, just like I was describing before with the old woman and the young woman, depending on how you look at it, you'll see it. A culture a long time ago could see the world as an energy matrix and recognize that there's this big tree at the center of everything. Another way to look at this is the tree of life. This is an arcane image, but it's maybe not so metaphorical. Maybe it's like a literal thing. It's just not in the physical realm, the 3D realm, the space-time realm. It's in the time-space realm. So when you look at it that way, I think it makes perfectly sense that it's flat. It's a wave. And just to bring it back to the quantum physics one last time, depending on how you look at it, it's either a particle or it's a wave. A wave exists on a plane, like a flat plane. Time is a flat circle, as Matthew McConaughey said in True Detective. Throwing a lot of references out there, but I encourage you to look into some of these things. They're kind of cool. It's interesting. I'm always trying to find a way to like bring in the Forrest Gump mentality. The very end of Forrest Gump. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's both. Well, is it a particle or is it a wave? It is both. They both exist in the field. And depending on how we're observing it, that's what we're going to see. If we build a rocket ship to go out in outer space, go around the moon and look back at the Earth on the prediction or of the assumption or the understanding or the science or whatever, the observation that it's round, you turn around, you're going to see a round Earth looking back at you. But if you're like a psychonaut like Terrence McKenna or something like that, and you don't even have to leave the Earth, this is the thing. You got astronauts that go out into outer space and see the cosmos, but then you have psychonauts. This is a really cool term for like shamans and people like John Lilly and Timothy Leary that would like sit in their bedrooms high as a kite on like psychedelics or something and extend their consciousness and see the world in a completely different way. And there's a lot of wisdom that comes from that place too. It's not like it's not an imaginary realm. There's so much science now going into like DMT and the DMT realm and actually mapping this place out. It's not just a figment of our imagination. It's a real place. The thing is, space and time, a lot of people say space and time don't really exist. They're just constructs of our consciousness. I like to think of it, no, they do both exist, but they complement each other. They are two sides of the same coin. If you want to do a coin toss, you flip it up. It's going to be heads or tails, 50-50 chance. But what you can also do with a coin is you can take a coin on a table and spin it. And when you spin the coin, this flat thing kind of actually, perfect example here about the shifting optical illusion of perception and the two actually being one at the same time. You spin that coin and the coin actually appears round. It's not round, but it's spinning. It's actually on it's on like an equilibrium. It's spinning. You can't even see heads or tails at that point. You see a completely different object. And then eventually it stops spinning, right? I really think that these give us insight into what this earth actually is, what our lives really are. The people debating the simulation, they like, I loved on some, I think it was Joe Rogan podcast or something. They had the simulation comes up and somebody's like, okay, it's a simulation. It's not simulation. Like, what am I supposed to do with that information? Like, who cares if it's a simulation? It's a good point. Very, very valid point. It's like, how is it relevant to us in the world today? I think it's relevant because if we understand that, if we get a better idea of our surroundings and our relationship to them, we might have a better reason or understanding on how to live in harmony with this place. We recognize that this is a big energy matrix and that we're not necessarily really even in the present moment. Maybe all of those wonderful messages of morality that come from spiritual traditions about kindness, compassion, forgiveness, love, maybe we'll learn to be a little bit nicer to each other. Instead of what is just the convenient takeaway from any of this stuff, which is, round earthers versus flat earthers, flat earth side one versus flat earth side two. People are constantly arguing with each other. Which one is it? I must be right. You must be wrong. That is the most important reason about the simulation, because if we understand that this is not what we think it is, and maybe no one really can tell, and it's not one or the other, no one person has the entire truth, and we need each other to reflect things that back to each other that we don't inherently know as an individual. We need community. You know what? I mean, though that line of thinking at least gets me to think like, okay, well, with all the problems we're facing on the earth right now, maybe we're just tripping too hard and we should, back away from the window before we jump out the window in that bad moment. It's like, realize, hey, we're tripping here. We don't know what's really going on. We have really good observations on both points. Maybe we should learn how to find complement and cooperate between these 2 points of view. If it works in quantum physics, I mean, that's the big thing. Holy shit, it's a particle and it's a wave at the same time. That means that our consciousness actually interferes with the world and what we think matters. That's just the act of observing a particle and it behaves completely different. Imagine if we looked at the world and the place that we're in is not a complete random accident or a place of torment and destruction or even a prison, as a lot of the flat earth people think. Maybe if we ask ourselves, well, we don't like that, what would we rather have? What if we start thinking about what we'd rather have the world be rather than what we've been programmed to think the world is? And start to let go to this idea that we think we know everything. We don't. I think I'll end this live stream on this note here. The one thing that we do really know in this world is that we don't really know. Knowledge is power. But the wisdom to know what knowledge actually is the freedom that is available to us if we choose to let go and know that we don't know. Life is a mystery. Life is a mystery. And the moment we become super certain about things, that's when we have to kind of start putting ourselves into check a little bit. Because there's energy, if it teaches us anything, is constantly changing. The universe is constantly changing. The round earth is always spinning. But the flat earth, it's like, okay, well, there's what's on the outside. Change is the only constant here. So I haven't heard anyone else talk about the flat earth in that respect. And the last, again, I guess this will be the last suggestion I have for anyone who is coming at the flat earth, in the flat earth community. I don't know if I can really reach into the religious people's mindset, because religious people tend to be pretty dogmatic. Have their minds made up and surrender their own critical thinking skills to something that somebody else tells them. No offense, but I'm not trying to sway the religious flat earth people here, but for any other flat earth people out there that are just naturally questioning things, they don't trust the government, they don't trust the media, they don't trust science or whatever, trust NASA. All I suggest is to, what if you were to look at this as an energy matrix, and it's not literally flat, it's not physically flat, it's energetically flat in our consciousness. You know, it's like, if it was physically flat, you would be able to go to the ice wall and never come back. And there's stories of actual flat earthers that were brought down to Antarctica to observe the phenomenon of the 24-hour sun, which according to the flat earth theories, it's like that shouldn't exist because in the flat earth physics, the sun moves around in certain places. So it should never, the 24-hour sun shouldn't exist. But these flat earthers actually paid a lot of money to go down to Antarctica and do a tour and observe the 24-hour sun. And once they actually went there and saw it, laid their eyes on it, you know, the double slit experiment, they observed it. They saw it wasn't what they thought it was. So they had to kind of reconcile their audience, being like, hey, yeah, I still believe in flat earth, but yeah, I was wrong about this. Sorry. I was like, we have to be careful not to be dogmatic. Don't make your mind up and think you know everything. I like the idea that we're living in a virtual reality, omnidirectional treadmill situation. We are just living on this plane in this world right now. And energy is so slowed down that we appear to be moving around all over the place. But in geologic time, you know, 1,000 years is like less than a snap of a fingers. You wouldn't be able to see anybody moving around with the time lapse that much. So we're going to work on refining that whole thing into more of a thesis. But my goal is to help bring people together and to dispel any sort of dogma on any side of an argument. Is it heads? Is it tails? Well, it's both. And maybe we should stop debating and betting on heads or tails at this point and learn how to spin the coin. Do a little magic. Do a little magic of perception. That's a great opportunity right now. Oh, cool. Sean Hawkins, what's up? Hello. I don't know if you're still on here, but I see that you were here. Very cool. And I just want to say thank you for being here, sharing in this little thought experiment about the earth and whether it's flat or whether it's round. Maybe it's both, like Forrest Gump said. We're going to do more live streams later. I appreciate y'all being here. Hopefully this was entertaining at the very least. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful for all of you. Take care of each other. Take care of yourselves, and learn to be a little bit kinder to each other, and be kinder to yourself as well, because that's what the Creator wants. The Creator likes to give unconditionally. The sun does not care whether you're a sinner or not. The sun will still shine on you. Let's be more like the sun, like the Creator. Let's give unconditionally, love unconditionally, and remember, peace up. Thanks, everyone.